Hello, I'm Alistair Dryburgh, author of Pricing Genius, Getting Paid Properly for Ideas and Advice in the Era of AI. So, when you start your value pricing journey, you're going to have to answer these two questions, among others. Firstly, what makes you different? And secondly, how do I know you can do what you claim to be able to do? Both of these can be answered very effectively by having a proprietary methodology, a method, a process, a framework, something like that, which only you have. An example of this was a consultancy which grew very large, helping large companies with diversified portfolios work out the relative attractiveness of different bits of their business so they knew where to invest, when to divest. So typical insight that this consultancy would come up with was, for instance, with a big alcoholic drinks manufacturer. And the manufacturer thought, okay, vodka and Scotch whisky, pretty much equally attractive because it costs the same to make a case of vodka as it does to make a case of Scotch. And a case of vodka sells for about the same as a case of Scotch. So, no, said this consultancy, you've missed something. The vodka, you can pretty much make it, ship it to the wholesaler and sell it, and within 6 weeks, you've got your money. Scotch, on the other hand, if you even want to call it Scotch legally, you have to mature it for at least 3 years. So yes, it costs the same to make and you get the same when you sell it. But in the case of Scotch, you've got to wait 3 years to get paid. So vodka, from this point of view at least, is a much more attractive proposition than Scotch. It's a pretty powerful insight. It's one of those things, it's blindingly obvious when you see it, but the skill is in seeing it. Now, the way they got to this insight was by using their framework. And here it is in its totality. There's the formula. Don't worry about what it says. Just take my word for it that if you were a CFO, I could explain it to you in about 5 minutes. It was very powerful, though. They had a name for it. It was called EVA, which maybe was economic value analysis, or maybe it was named after one of the founder's girlfriends who was called Eva. We don't know. But it demonstrated that they could do the job and that they were the only people who had this format, and they did very, very well out of it. Now, the really interesting part of the story is this formula was not unique to them. In fact, it was the DuPont formula invented by the DuPont Corporation, of course, back in the 1920s, described by Peter Drucker in a book which he published sometime in the 1960s. So it wasn't in any, and I learnt about it in the early 90s on a strategy course at a business school, so it was in no way original, but they'd identified it, they'd picked it out of the library of neglected ideas, the cemetery of dead concepts, and they'd rejuvenated it with a new name and a new purpose, and they did very, very well out of it. So, the moral of the story is, have a proprietary methodology. It sets you apart, it proves you can do the job, so you'll get the price you deserve. But don't worry about inventing something from scratch. There's lots of stuff out there just waiting to be adapted and rejuvenated. Or there may be something inside your own business that you've been doing, and without realizing it, you've codified it into a process. So there is a line of approach could be very helpful. If you'd like to think more about how you might do this, my advice is, now I admit I'm biased, but get the book. Wait until the end of the video, and there's a link where you can get the ebook for free.